I'll just go straight into the presentation, but just to give a bit of a background, I work in cybersecurity. I've also been a project manager for 15 years at this point, and the basis of my talk is trying to encourage people to understand cybersecurity and privacy, and also empower women to consider it as another path for their career. Just to be clear, can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go straight into the presentation then. So one of the ways I like to describe cybersecurity is how you have important things that you want to protect, say in your house, for example, your favorite chair or your favorite outfit, and you just don't want people to walk in to take them out of your wardrobe. The first thing you do is make sure that your house is secure from the door, and then when you get to your room, you only have access, only the people that you have given access can get into your room, so that if anything is missing, you have an idea of who may have taken it. In this era that we're in, one of the most valuable things that we protect is our data, both the ones that we generate or the ones that we have to give to organizations. So, for example, with PMI, I had to give my name, my details, and who I am so that I could present this talk this Saturday. It's the same thing with when we access websites, when we go anywhere, we have data that is given everywhere. And the value that the data has is not in itself just how it exists in vacuum, is how it's interacting with other data that companies have of us. So they have a full picture of who we are, even though we ourselves don't have that full picture. Cybersecurity in itself, what it does is to make sure that sensitive information that we give to organizations, we give to websites when we access them, or that other companies have access to, is protected from unauthorized access, theft, and manipulation. In the cybersecurity landscape itself, one of the big things that we've identified and we forecasted for 2025 is that cybercrime in itself will cost 10.5 trillion US dollars. And what that means is we have the opportunity to come into the field and work on protecting organizations, protecting individuals, and making sure that where there are data breaches or where there's a cybersecurity breach, there's a reduction of the risk on how it affects us individually and the companies that we work for as a whole. And now that we rely on remote working, so for example, we're all on Zoom at the moment, it's important for us to make sure that any cyber attack that we may be exposed to is reduced, as long as we put in the measures and we are secure and we're aware of the ways to secure ourselves. So I'll emphasize the gender gap that I've seen so far in cybersecurity. At the moment, one of the things that people are worried about is, oh, it's too technical. I'm a project manager, or I'm a PMO, and I just don't want to get into anything too technical. But you could also pivot your skills as a project manager or PMO or project lead to get into the cybersecurity field. So it's mainly about risk management, which we have to do on everyday basis, communication, which you also do daily, problem solving, so identifying the problems themselves, and then the leadership to find the solutions for those problems. And these are strengths that most women excel in. It's something that we have been trained for a long time to do in our unofficial lives, and it's a skill that we can pivot into the cybersecurity field. So what we are trying to do as a whole is to see how we could increase the role of women in cybersecurity from 25% as it is at the moment to say 35% by the next year. A bit ambitious, but I think there are steps in there that we can walk through. And one of my key strategies usually is through education. I find that the scare comes from not knowing how to learn a new thing and the complexities in learning in the first place. And from my point of view, the two courses that I've taken are both on EDX. And the first one is the Introduction to Cybersecurity by Harvard X. And it's quite a very simple or rather, it's broken down simply so that it's easy to follow. It's a 6-week course. You can do it in 12 if you prefer that pace. And it helps with understanding what data is in the first place, what cybersecurity is on the whole, and how to protect yourself, your data, your devices, and systems from cyber attacks. And then the second course that I enjoy is the one that IBM has created. What that course does is helps you think critically about how security threats can be posed and best practices that you can adopt for reducing the risks. Another way is through building a supportive community. I enjoy being part of PMI because there are different chapters, different working groups that you can be part of to help with creating connections and expanding your professional circles. You could also go on the PMI LinkedIn where there are other groups there, and it helps with inspiring ourselves to learn better, to be more active in the field, and also to make sure that we are securing a trustworthy digital future. So what I've done in this slide is to create measures for us to understand how we can be aware of our privacy and make sure that we bake in privacy awareness in all that we do. So I'll start with data. When data has been collected from you, the first thing I will think about is how is the data being personalized for me? If there are ads, are they being catered to me, or am I just allowing any ads to be served to me? And how does my data help in the service improvement? Always remember that your online actions have value. So the fact that you're using Zoom means that Zoom also is important for your day-to-day activities, and they need your data also so that they can provide a better way for you to communicate with your team. The second part is the data breach. So we've heard all over the news of data breaches that happen on a global scale, in medical field, in financial field. And when you read up about these breaches, you realize that security measures could have been put in a better way, and it would have reduced the risk of financial loss or identity theft on your own. The third is knowing that tracking is normal. So there's no point deceiving ourselves that we're not being tracked. In different ways, we're being tracked on our phone, on our laptops, on our the apps that we use. The important thing is to make sure that we're monitoring our digital footprint, and we're being conscious of how our data is being used to surveil ourselves. Thankfully, with regulations that exist, which is the next point, you actually have control over your data. So, for example, with GDPR in Europe, you can ask for your data to be wiped. You can ask to understand what data is being collected about you, and you can ask for the right to be forgotten if you feel like you no longer want to be part of an ecosystem digitally. And then the privacy actions about how we take charge online. Now we have password managers that can suggest strong passwords for us, but is also making sure that we are aware of our privacy settings, how we empower ourselves with sharing our data, but at the same time reducing access to the data we don't want companies or people to have awareness of. And then the last part of this privacy awareness is the toolkit that you have. So, what password managers are you using? If you have privacy browsers, are you taking advantage of them, or is it something new for you and you want to learn how to use privacy browsers? Are you using VPNs to protect yourself and protect your location from being broadcast on the internet? There's so many resources, and in this slides, I've put them in the speaker notes. So I guess at the end of the talk, Nelly will send it to everyone, but it's making sure that you have the resources available to protect you and making sure that you're constantly auditing your privacy and who has access to you and your data. So I've put in a take action slide, which is basically how we learn about cybersecurity or privacy in the first place, using a learning path that is structured so that it's easier to follow as opposed to rushing to learn everything as a whole. The second part is seeking out mentorship. PMI has good mentorship platforms, so we can either seek out mentorship on PMI platform or LinkedIn, or even in our in our local communities, Pierre Galicia, for example, and then staying updated. If in the following slides, I've provided information on podcasts and websites you can visit so you can stay updated with new and interesting cases that are happening, new ways to protect ourselves, and just new endeavors that are happening globally. And the last part is about demonstrating expertise in what we do. So starting out as a novice in privacy and then showing throughout the journey how you're making yourself an expert along the way. And visualize success. So in the following slides, what I've done is given a visual of other women that have started something in cybersecurity or privacy and how their impact is on the rest of the work that you do. And the first person I'll talk about is Parisa. So Parisa is what is called a security princess at Google. And what she has done is to own her role as the director of engineering and personalize it to say that I'm in charge of security for Google Chrome, the browser that most of us use. And she makes sure that she is up to date with her skills. She's up to date with what she's doing with Google. And she also has a blog. I'll share that at the end of the talk this morning. The next person I want to talk about is Joy Bulamwini. So Joy is one of the people that's pioneered the bias against AI in the industry, and what she's done is to show how you can infuse algorithms algorithms that will make sure that there is no bias in AI systems, especially when it comes to facial recognition. And the third person is the people hacker. So with Jenny, Jenny isn't technical as such. What she does is social engineering. And what that means is that she goes into a situation and sees how she can extract data from people who don't mean to. So, for example, making friends with people, using psychological manipulation, or persuading people to give out passwords, and showing how it's easy to manipulate people, not by breaking code, but just by interacting. And this is one of the fields in cybersecurity that a lot of people are maybe not aware of, but it's one that is really good for understanding social engineering and understanding how best to protect people from being victims of social engineering. And the last person is Karen. She's an analyst and an author. And what she does is she looks at the bigger picture of what cybersecurity is. And she shows how it's a complex social and political issue that affects everyone, not just on the technical front, but even the way we relate to each other on a daily basis. So with these case studies, what I'm trying to show here is showing how wide and vast cybersecurity and privacy is. It's not just about technical expertise, it's also about the ethical advocacy, about how we can understand human beings on a global scale, and to show the vision of how women participate in different ways to future-proof cybersecurity attacks. Earlier, I mentioned the podcast I'll share. So there are 4 of them I've put in the slides. You have Darknet Diaries, which is almost like one of these the crime shows, but just about cybersecurity. And I like the way the presenter talks in an engaging way. So you understand the stories and then you understand how best to protect yourself and your company from cyber threats. You also have Malicious Life, which is also equally as engaging. And it talks about the history of cyber threats. And it also talks about lessons that we can learn throughout the digital footprint that we have and we're leaving. And then the last 2 are the Microsoft Threat Intelligence podcast, which is a bit more technical, but it helps with presenting security issues in a way that you can gain valuable insights. And the last podcast is Hacking Humans. So Hacking Humans also talks about social engineering and how you can put yourself as a human firewall to protect people from stealing your data assets. So are there any questions?
You could also write the question in the chat and I can read it if somebody wants to write down a question.
Hi, Toyin. I had a question for you.
Yes.
What advice would you give a project manager or a company that's planning to invest in a cybersecurity policy or plan? What are some of the criteria that we should include for sure?
Yes. So, criteria for cybersecurity strategies and plan. I think the first one is knowing where your data is. At the core of everything in cybersecurity, it's actually the data itself. Who has access to that data? um, who who else is processing that data? So I would say start with the access of the data. Do you have good policies for identity and access management? Because that's the key, because it then gives you traceability when there's a cyber threat or a cyber attack. The second is having processes and policies in place. Policies and processes are usually the hard work because you can't cater to everything that would happen or that will go wrong. So it's usually the best approach is to have a rolling period or periodical way of looking at the policies and then updating it as cyber attacks happen globally, because then you'd always hear about what's going on, especially for example with the data breach that happened in TokTok recently. So you'd know what's happening and you can update on a daily basis. And then if you're within a region where GDPR is going to affect you, then going for the GDPR sessions that the DPOs need to have, updating the DPOs are the data policy officers, data protection officers rather. So making sure that they're updated with what's going on in the field and that feeds into your policy. When the program itself, then also having the proper project management approaches and the risk management guardrails there. Thanks, Shita.
Thank you. Thank you, Toyin. That was very insightful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Toyin.
Thank you.
And I actually miss something at the beginning.